and take stock into the fact that Dylan Brooks was on last night, man. He has been struggling ever since he got that contract extension, but he came out last night firing 23 points on 8 of 12 shooting. John Morant had a monstrous alley-oop dunk last night, but he had a double-double, 22 points and 12 assists. And I think if those two guys can sort of replicate what they did last night, I think they might be able to steal a few.
Yeah, I think that this is the exact type of performance that you wanted from the Grizzlies going into their last scrimmage before they start the season here on Friday against Portland, because it shows that they've adjusted to the bubble life, that they are clicking on all cylinders. And regardless of whether Miami Heat were maybe not playing 100% going at it yesterday afternoon, it still was great to see the Grizzlies actually be able to make shots and put up the amount of points they did. And, of course, Ja just firing on all cylinders, 22 and 12.
Yeah, but the biggest thing, I think, even more than Ja, because Ja has been,
he's been doing it all year.
He's consistent. He is literally poetry on an NBA basketball court, in my opinion. But Dylan Brooks has been one of those guys where since he got this extension, everybody's been sort of nervous, real nervous, been very inefficient. We know he's a high-volume shooter. And when he scores 20-plus points, I mean, the Grizzlies' record is way up. So with Dylan Brooks, if he can be as efficient as he was last night, or at least around that mark, 8 for 12 is really nice for him. If he can stay around that mark, this Grizzlies team is going to find a lot of success in this schedule, especially early against Blazers, Spurs, Pelicans, Jazz. I think they can find some success against those teams if Dylan Brooks can be firing.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it since the schedule's really been released, that if the Grizzlies can get off to a hot start 3-0, then they pretty much have it wrapped up. And the way that they performed yesterday is definitely pointing signs and arrows to that being an actual possibility. And for Dylan Brooks, I mean, obviously a great talent. I think deserved the contract extension, deserved the money. But it's – when he's hot, he's hot, and when he's on. But it's got to be a little bit more consistent. Maybe
of course.
I don't need 20 plus points from him every game in and game out, but I need at least 10. And it seems like it's either 20 or it's 5. It's 26 or it's 8. Like, at least try to find some type of common ground for me.
I mean, the Dylan Brooks performances you don't want, or when he's scoring in the teens or the low 20s and shooting at an inefficient, ridiculous clip of like 25%. Yeah. You don't want that out of him, because we know how much of a volume shooter he is. He needs to be a guy who fills it up for them. That's what the Grizzlies need to be able to win. That's what the Grizzlies need to be able to contend in this restart. And I think these first couple games they beat the Blazers before the All-Star break. They can handle the Spurs. Pelicans, we shall see what they are like, because I think Zion got cleared from quarantine as of last night, but I'm not sure if he's going to play. I think
he should be. If he's clear to go, he should be good to go.
I think that's his. What I heard as of yesterday is that he should be good to go, but it didn't sound like it from all the reporting I saw on it. I'm not sure that he will be in uniform and going for the restart, but we shall see. But again, the back half of the schedule, you start to wonder, because normally you look at the Jazz, Thunder, Raptors, Celtics, Bucks, and say, okay, these are going to be tough matchups. These are going to be really tough matchups for the Grizzlies. But in the grand scheme of things, you wonder at the end of the season, those last 4 or 5 games, if those teams are going to take their foot off the gas a tad bit, especially the Celtics and Bucks, because they are likely locked up in their positions in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, I mean, that's been, I think, up for debate a lot. A lot of people think that they're going to treat the last few games like they would in the regular season, but I'm still not 100% sure, just due to the fact that we've taken so much time off. And to get playoff ready, it takes more than 3 scrimmages and a few regular regular season or games that actually count and matter to get back into playoff type of performances. So, I really would not be shocked that, Boston and Milwaukee and Toronto, those final 3 games for the Grizzlies, are actually playing at full speed and having the full roster out there to get playoff ready.
I don't doubt that, because I think you hit the nail on the head with that one. Yes, you probably need a decent amount of games to get back into playing shape and playing sort of team basketball, figuring it back out with each other. So I definitely see that, but you do wonder what the last 2 games on this schedule, the Celtics and Bucks, will look like from a standpoint of who's playing and who's not. But also around the MLB yesterday, the Marlins, after the Nationals refused to play them, so their next
took a vote
series was against the Nationals. The Orioles had been postponed; they didn't want to play, but the Nationals refused to play the Marlins as well. So they are now, the Marlins, postponed through at least Sunday, and that's going to be 5 missing games. And you do the math. I mean, 60 games in 66 days. You're definitely running low on time. I don't know how they're going to make those up, if they'll make them up.
Or if they really even need to make them up.
Yeah, and they're missing games against the Orioles and Nationals. And then, ironically, the next scheduled game for the Marlins is going to be against the Phillies, who they open the season up against next Tuesday on the 4th. This also caused a ripple effect and changed the Yankees, who were supposed to play the Phillies, and the Orioles, who were supposed to play the Marlins. Now they're going to play each other in Baltimore. On Wednesday, they're going to start that Wednesday. So this is definitely, the MLB is feeling the effects of the Marlins' positive test greatly.
Yeah, but I think the shutting it down for the week, while, obviously we're slated for 66 days, 60 games in 66 days, I don't think that's set in stone. I think that's where the MLB would like to end their season. But if it comes down to it that these games need to be played against the Marlins, I think that they'll end up playing them for respective teams. As I say, the Nationals or the Phillies really Nationals, Phillies, or Orioles really need a few more games to kind of make a playoff push to get into the wild card seedings or for a division title. Then they will be played, or we go off of winning percentage, which I just think that opens up a whole lot more room for debate and room for argument instead of 100 playing the 60. Best record out of 60, you can't really argue with it. If you go off of winning percentages, then it's like, well, what if they had actually played? They probably would have dropped 1 or 2. The percentage would have gone down. This team would have moved up. So I think MLB did the right decision by shutting them down, kind of to stop the spread and to stop the influence that the Marlins could possibly give to other organizations and in other cities. So if it works and nobody from going forward, once the Marlins start to play, contracted from anybody on opposing teams, I think this is kind of the blueprint that we're going to have going forward. If you have multiple guys, say 5 to 10 or even more, then look, you're shut down for a week, you're getting tested every day, and you're going into quarantine, and we'll figure it out from there.
So with 15 positive COVID-19 tests, I sort of wonder, and the Nationals, of course, were the first team to literally refuse to play the Marlins. I wonder, though, next Tuesday, their next slated game against the Phillies, if the Phillies are going to want to face off against them again. I wonder what these guys think about the risk of the Marlins in general right now.
Well, I think that it's the same risk that they thought about when they decided to play, when they decided not to opt out of the 2020 season, that they knew that there was going to be risks. They knew that they were possibly going to come in contact with another player that has contracted COVID-19. I think the Nationals kind of really set a precedent by taking a vote and saying, no, we're just not going to do it. We're not going to put ourselves at that high of a risk. But with the Phillies, I think if they continue to get negative, we still don't aren't 100% sure that none of them contracted
because of
the virus.
incubation
Yes,
period.
from the Marlins due to the incubation period, which can last up to 14 days. Normally, I think what they're reporting is normally within 2 to 3 days of coming in contact, you'll could possibly test positive or will start showing symptoms if you're not asymptomatic. So we should know for sure, I believe, by the end of the week. By Friday. So if everything stays clear, I think MLB did a good job by this.
The one thing that really threw me off, Drew, and I think you can also, I don't know how much you sort of fall into this category, is like I figured the MLB would not have the amount of delays on testing that they have. Like, we were waiting, 2 days for the Phillies tests to come back. And I think that, I think they need to try and get them a little more rapid, because then you waste a game if they're all negative, right? You're wasting time by waiting for these tests. And I get that you don't want to take resources away from the general population and everything of that nature. But I think as the MLB right now, if you're trying to get this season and you need to get these tests back as fast as possible, it doesn't seem like they're doing that. It seems like they're sort of on the same waiting period as you and I.
Well, they're definitely getting them back faster than I did. I got my results back, I believe, 4.5 days after I took the test. So, it's just the climate I think that we are in. I would love for the results to come back within a couple of hours, but that's just not where we are in the development of the test. As soon as that becomes relatively available to most people, then the MLB and all these other professional leagues will have that testing, and we'll be able to get it out a lot faster.
Well, it seems like the NBA and NFL have sort of gotten their tests back pretty expeditiously from the looks of it. I mean, they report for camp, I believe, obviously it was yesterday, but they were talking about the positive coronavirus tests yesterday as well. So it seems as if they are getting it done quicker than the MLB. But again, we will talk to Dan Clark here on the other side about that. He will be at Dan Clark Sports on Twitter. We're going to talk to him about some Marlins, some Nationals, see exactly what is about to happen with this season, how they're going to try and make up these games and alleviate some of the stress that we've had to deal with this week. But we'll be right back here on Sports 56, 96.1, 87.7.
R&R on Sports.
That's right here at 7:30. We are going to welcome in Dan Clark. You can follow him on Twitter at Dan Clark Sports. He has been covering the MLB for 11 years, previously at MASN, and now has his own site, TBL Daily. Dan, how are you?
I'm well. How are you, gentlemen?
Well,
Doing
I'm well.
very good.
Can't complain. Just trying to work through all of this this stuff going on in the MLB right now. I guess my first question where I want to start is, when you look at the Marlins and all these postponements, I think they're going to miss 5 games when it's all said and done.
Yep.
What do you think could be done? What will be done? What might be done to try and sort of make up these games? Is there going to be enough wiggle room to be able to get that done?
I think that's the million-dollar question. And I think whenever you see an outbreak of 17 or 18, I think it is up to now within the one team, you need a lot of flexibility around the scheduling. And we've seen that already with the rescheduling of some games. Obviously, from an Orioles perspective, the team I cover predominantly, they've had some games. I guess they had 4 in a row lined up against the Marlins when all this broke. So there's been some flexibility with the scheduling there, and then obviously playing the Yankees, there's been some flexibility around the Phillies as well, because obviously so far so good with the news on the Phillies. There hasn't been any positive tests, but it is still early days, so let's see how we go in the next 24, 48 hours. But ultimately, I was sending out some tweets yesterday about the flexibility needed from Major League Baseball and all of the respective teams. This is just the first of probably multiple outbreaks we're going to see throughout the season. I think we all expected that. I don't think we expected it this soon or this severe in terms of, 17, 18 people involved in it with one team already, and that may still grow. So I think we need a united approach, and so far we've seen that. I said it's probably about 24 hours ago, so the next 48 hours is going to be crucial to baseball to see how they handle it. And so far, I think it's been handled pretty well.
Yeah, I agree with you, Dan. And I'm normally one of the biggest Rob Manfred
haters.
Critics. Critics. I don't know why I couldn't spit it out when it comes to Major League Baseball. Knowing when people ask what should he do, I always answer with resign. But I do agree. I think he's actually handled this situation pretty well, and kind of switching from COVID to actually play on the field. I saw a few tweets of yours from yesterday's Dodgers and Astros game. Are you on the same page as everybody else? Is Joe Kelly is now your new favorite player?
I've changed my Twitter name for 24 hours, saying I'm Joe Kelly's #1 fan. That was fantastic. His antics, the facial expressions, and obviously, I think we all wanted to see some high and fast pitching, and we saw that definitely. And I think it's well deserved. I've been pretty vocal on the Astros and what I think of their behaviour in 2017, and probably not only the events themselves, but the way they handled themselves afterwards. I think there was a lot of arrogance there, and I think Joe Kelly and the Dodgers won a lot of fans last night.
Yeah, I absolutely do too. Sort of moving back to the COVID-19 front real quick. What is your, and I know that, our livelihoods here in Sports Talk Radio are based upon sports happening, basically. But I'm curious because I've heard Buster Olney talk about, it's a 5% chance that the season gets started. Well, it got started, and a 0% chance that it finishes. Where are you on that scale of confidence with the season actually finishing? Do you think that it will actually conclude?
I think we'll know within 2 weeks. I think we'll know within 2 weeks. Obviously, as I said, this first outbreak has probably occurred a lot sooner than we expected, but it's been a good test. If you're going to get tested, you may as well get tested early and see how they handle it. And I think the teams involved and MLB, led by Manfred, as we said, have handled it well. Let's see what happens in the next 2 weeks if there's any more outbreaks. I think if we can get through the first few weeks, I think we'll be okay. I think there's too much commitment going on now. There's been a lot of logistics occurring, obviously, to get the show on the road, and a lot of time and money has been invested. The fans are obviously heavily invested now. I expect the season to probably, continue on warts and all.
Mm-hmm. And I do want to ask this. I do want to get to baseball eventually in this interview, but I do just have to know, you obviously being in Australia right now, what's the biggest difference that you've seen in how Australia has handled COVID-19 a lot better than we have here in the States?
Yeah, look, without getting political, I do think we've handled it really well in Australia. In saying that, down where I am in Victoria, which is down south in Melbourne, I guess we're in our second wave now. So we had the first wave initially, it was probably in April, and we went into a 4-week lockdown, which was pretty much you can leave your house for 4 reasons, and that's everyone. That's to go to work, to go to school, to look after, so caregiving they called it, to go to shops or go seek medical treatment. So that were the only reasons you could leave the house, and we basically squashed it down to nearly non-existent. We're getting 1 or 2 cases a day out of 5 million people in this city. So we had it right under control, and unfortunately there were some issues with return travellers in quarantine, and that's all it took for it to spark up again. And we're probably getting anywhere between 300 and 500 cases in Melbourne a day now, which isn't huge compared to the US, but compared to where we were in that initial wave, it's quite alarming. So we're back in lockdown, and again, same thing. They've locked us down for 6 weeks this time, and mask wearing is compulsory. So our government's gone really hard in an attempt to squash it. I guess we're a bit lucky in that we're an island nation, albeit a big one. So, yeah, we'll see how we go. We're about 3 weeks through the lockdown. It's just the case numbers are just starting to drop now.
Certainly, I agree with your sentiment about here in the U.S., the politicizing of the virus has sort of been a key component of probably the response and how we have dealt with it. And I think that's a big part. And you say mask wearing is compulsory. We have guys on the text line here in Memphis who still think that that's a violation of rights, but that's neither here nor there. Now we need to talk a little bit of baseball.
Let's get to the fun stuff.
I am a big Cardinals fan. So the NL Central this year, I didn't have, especially with the Cardinals losing Marcell Ozuna, I didn't have a huge sort of hope that they're going to win the division, especially when you have the Cubs and the Reds as part of it. But the Reds, I saw a lot of preseason sort of thoughts and takes talking about the Reds winning the division. Yet they stand at the bottom of the division at 1-4, while the Cubs are at the top at 4-1. Obviously, first week of the season, I'm not too concerned about where all these teams are at right now. But what were your thoughts on the NL Central coming into the season?
I mean, it's along with the National League East, it's probably the best and closest division in baseball. I think you've got really 3 teams, probably 4 teams, really who could challenge. And in a season like this, where 60 games, it's whoever gets hot and stays hot is going to win. The Cubs, Cardinals, obviously, the Brewers are thereabouts, and the Reds. They had a really good off season. They really boosted that roster well. But yeah, I was looking earlier today my time, and there's 4 hopefuls that I thought were really going to be thereabouts come playoff time. The Red Sox, the White Sox, the Nationals, and the Reds were that other one I thought they're going to be thereabouts, and they've all started 1-4. And usually that's obviously not a huge concern, but in a 60-game season, you're probably going to want to win at least 30 just to snag a wild card there, even with the extended 16-team playoff berth. So they got to get their asses into gear pretty soon.
Yeah, on the flip side of that, who do you think is already, I know that it's a very small sample size. We're not even to 10% of games being played, but who's already kind of showed their true colors and they're at the bottom and they're probably going to stay there?
Yeah, well, I think the Red Sox are one of them. I think it's probably an end of an era there. Their window's closed. They've got an aging rotation. They've got some injury concerns as well. So I think the Red Sox are in trouble. They don't have a great farm as well. Obviously, keep a close eye on them being in the AL East with the Orioles. But, yeah, I think other teams you can write off. You can write off the Pirates. They're gone. Look, I would have said the Orioles. We're in another rebuilding season, which we might touch on later. But
Drew doesn't like
to hear that. We will. Dan, if you did, I'm a huge
he doesn't like to hear that.
So, I mean, I thought they were going to be in for a tough year. They had a good opening series against the Sox. Let's see how they go now. Yeah, I think it's going to be really close. Any team, I was doing some research the other day, and in 4 out of the last 5 seasons, there's been 16 teams who've finished 500 or better. And that's quite ironic that 16 teams are making the playoffs this year. So let's say that's the sweet spot. It's pretty safe to say that the 30-30 season is probably going to get you into the playoffs. And, it doesn't take a lot to win 30 games. As I said, there's a few teams who are 4-1 already. They're well on the way.
Yeah, you mentioned the 16 team playoff, the expansion. There's obviously the other rules. We've got to see a couple of them in action, and I just sort of want to get your thoughts on them. The universal DH, the extra innings rule with a runner on second base, and then the 3-batter minimum. Where do you fall on these? Do you like any of them? Do you hate any of them? What's your thoughts?
I don't like the 3-batter minimum. I definitely don't like that one. I understand the reasonings for it, speeding up the game, et cetera, but I don't like it. I definitely don't like the extra innings rule with the runner starting on second. In saying that, it's probably, again, I think out of the 5 times we've seen it in the last week, 4 times it's proven to be successful in the sense of it's ended the game in 10 innings.
Yep.
So I guess in a 60-game season, and as I said, we need flexibility with the scheduling. We're going to have a lot of double headers, things like that. So I understand it, and it probably works well this year. I just hope they don't carry it into next season. And the universal DH, I like it. I mean, again, American League is probably what I follow a lot more closely with the Orioles and so forth, and I'm obviously used to the DH there, and I'm definitely a big supporter of it. Again, we're trying to attract more people to watch baseball. There's people always compete. People are competing for their pastimes. What are their hobbies going to be? To draw more people into baseball, you got to keep the game entertaining. People want home runs. People want high scoring. That's what's going to drag people in, and I think the DH rule helps that.
Mm-hmm. And I do want to go ahead and get your thoughts on the O's. Obviously you said that, and I completely agree. Going into the year, I thought that we were going to have a rebuilding season as well, and probably we're going to have another 2 or 3. But I think there is some good young talent on this MLB on the O's roster. So who should baseball fans really look at as could be one of the up-and-coming stars in baseball on that Orioles roster? And I'm going to throw a curveball in here. You can't say Austin Hayes. So you got to give me somebody else.
I would have said Hayes, actually, because, I think we're all well aware of how much hope we have with him. Let's go Chance Cisco then, beyond the dish.
Mm-hmm.
Cisco has probably not come along as far as we would have hoped last year. However, he has got an abundance of opportunities ahead of him. Severino is probably the number one guy at the moment. He's earned that right after a pretty strong season last year. So Cisco is one I really want to see develop, and if he can get that back going, I think he's got a lot of potential. Look, he's definitely not some of the young guys, but definitely not one of the younger guys. But I love watching Jose Iglesias play.
Mm-hmm.
He's a hit machine. Someone as well like Hanser Alberto, another hit machine. These guys, they're going to hit 300, 350 with a handful of home runs. So they're the type of guys that the Orioles want to see, as the mainstays, the guys getting the job done day in, day out. And then some of those younger guys, your Rio Ruiz, those type of guys coming in and supporting. Cedric Mullins is another one.
Yep. He is Dan Clark at Dan Clark Sports on Twitter. He's covered the MLB for quite a while. He's formerly with MASN and now has his own site, tbldaily.com. Is there any work we need to look out for in the coming days, Dan?
No, just keep an eye on Twitter. Look, I will be putting an article out in 2 days' time, just recapping the first 7 games, and that'll be across the board in baseball. But I will do some stuff on the Orioles in the coming weeks as well to keep an eye out for.
Sounds good. Well,
Appreciate
thank you,
it, Dan.
Thank you for joining us. Stay safe.
Yeah, you too. Take care, guys.
All right, see you, Dan. Dan Clark. Some interesting notes there about the MLB. On the other side, I knew
I was going to throw him a curveball. I knew he was going to say Austin Hayes, so that's why I had to get an extra guy out there.
You're reaching.
Because, Austin Hayes, in center field for the Orioles. I do really see a lot of great talent out of him. Obviously, the guys that he mentioned, I also really like Dwight Smith Jr. Out in the outfield as well. So I think that the Orioles have got some young talent. I'm just still waiting on the pitching to come that has not been there in 10-plus years.
Just admit you want him to tell you.
I do. I just want him to tell me it's going to be good.
Be playoff worthy here
I did. I was really trying to bait him into it. I was wanting him to tell me.
That's what you want.
Just to give me some hope. Let me see some light at the end of the tunnel.
It's been a while for you on that one. I don't
we
know
won the division in 2014. It was only 6 years ago.
Yeah, but it's been very abysmal.
It's been very down since.
Very, very bad since.
Chris Davis is still on your team, right?
Yeah. Crush.
Oh yeah, best contract in sports right there.
Hey man, he's gonna get it back.
Okay. When they gave him the contract,
don't call it a comeback. Don't call it a comeback.
When they gave him the contract, it made sense. But we're gonna come back on the other side. I have some NFL notes, a few more opt-outs, namely on the Patriots, to get to right here on Sports 56, 96.1, 87.7.
Take Sports 56 with you on your phone.
W Cobb on Twitter, CBS Sports covering college basketball and college football. David, what's up, man?
Man, not much, guys. Just happy to have sports back,
Yeah, me too. Me too.
Wish it was a little bit more COVID-free sports, but
yeah,
sports altogether.
Sports nonetheless. Sports nonetheless.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, hey, kudos to baseball, man. They could have freaked out with the Marlins. They didn't freak out, so we still got baseball, at least, for now.
So I know you just heard me, Johnny Manziel backing up Lou Williams about the chicken wings at Magic City. Are you want to get takeout with me one day? Or do you want to dine in? Do you want to dine in? We could dine in if you want to.
Are we trying to Memphis join, or are we going to DoorDash all the way from Atlanta?
Look, like when we could both go to Atlanta, right? We could either dine in or get some takeout. I mean, whenever we end up there, right? I don't know when. I'm just asking. Are you interested in the chicken wings from Magic City now?
Like I've read a lot about these wings now, and I gotta say, like, I really think that the business model there is smart because what I was reading, is kind of explaining like. If you're out and about late at night on the weekends, you oftentimes get hungry. Well, if you get hungry, then what are your options at 1 a.m., 2 a.m.? Oftentimes, you got to go to like Taco Bell or just hope that the Wendy's drive-thru is still open. Or heaven forbid, you have to stop at a gas station and get some like Twinkies or something, which is just the absolute last resort. But these clubs, by having actual like decent food available, can sort of keep you from having to leave to go satisfy your hunger. And so they not only get you for what you're there for, but then they get you on the food too. So like, why not make it good? You charge for it. I think it's a brilliant business model.
For it.
Frankly,
I get your point, Cobb, but I don't. When I'm at at one of these establishments, my stomach rumbling isn't my first thought or my first concern. I just don't get it. Like I would never get hungry kind of at that place because I would
Magic
eat.
City, Drew. That's the explanation.
I mean, I obviously am a responsible person, and I eat before I go to said establishments.
Well, I mean, look, that doesn't make you a responsible person.
I think it does.
If you're at Magic City and Magic City's food is good, you eat the food at Magic City. What's wrong with it? I don't see anything wrong with it.
Do you guys want to?
Drew's trying to save all of his money for other things.
Yeah, right. He's trying to break them down into ones, get some change. That's what he's trying.
Come on, man. I can't keep going back for paying that $5 ATM fee.
All right.
Do you guys want to hear what Kevin Harlan had to say about it?
Please.
Yeah.
Oh, I heard that.
I want to see how much pull we have in the city of Atlanta. See if we can get some of those chicken wings sent down here to Orlando. We could celebrate.
The great one.
Restart.
Kevin Harlan. I love it. I love it, man.
I mean, he's TNT, right? Turner's based out of Atlanta, so surely
I bet he's been there. He's just blowing smoke. But actually, let's get to some college football here, and I just want to start. Have you? I know you've been very critical of the leadership in college football. Has anything changed? Do you think the leadership still sucks?
Yeah, I do. I mean, it really sucks. I mean, it really sucks. So yeah, I mean, all these conferences at first were saying end of July. Well, what's the date? Isn't it July the 29th? That is the date, right? It's July 29th.
Checked.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So we're at the end of July. All right. Where are your big bad declarations? Your plans that you were telling us that you were going to have at the end of July. I mean, what you got? Less than 48 hours until the month is over now. So, or maybe a little more than 48 hours. I don't know. Math is hard. But what I'm trying to say is that these plans should be coming out, and even if they're not official yet, this is usually around the time when you would expect some information to be leaking out about what they're going to do. But instead, you're hearing nothing from ADs. You're hearing nothing from conference commissioners. You're just hearing the same old tired stuff from Mark Emmert in an interview he did with ESPN that was published yesterday. So, I mean, I get it. Like the numbers, everyone was hoping that by the end of July they would look better, and they don't. So it's like, okay, what now? But like you had months to prepare for the what now, and they didn't do it. So the leadership stuff.
And certainly, you would think by now, with the Pac-12 and Big Ten going to a full conference-only schedule, that like at least we'd be uniform in that, right?
Yeah, I actually did think that the other leagues would follow suit, but I mean, like in the SEC's case, no games scheduled with the Big Ten, only a couple of games scheduled with the Pac-12. So, I mean, if they're all thinking about doing this +1 deal, the Big 12 ACC and SEC can sort of do that among themselves and sort of leave the Big Ten and Pac-12 off to do whatever they want to do. But here's the deal: is like with what we've seen from the Marlins now, and them having to take a pause. I think probably what the Pac-12 and Big Ten are doing is ultimately going to prove more wise, because assuming that it goes forward as things are planned now, they're probably going to need those extra weeks that are now built into their schedules to accommodate some sort of outbreaks here and there, because there's no bubble in college football. And it took the Marlins literally like 3 games to have an outbreak. So, I mean, it's going to happen in football. It already is happening. Rutgers and Michigan State, as we speak, under 14-day quarantine, as we stand a month away from the season. So, I mean, yeah, like I would love to see the Big 12, SEC, and ACC play that full conference slate and to have a marquee non-conference game as well. But if they're going to pull off the season, there needs to be some of that cushion built in for when your team has to go in quarantine for a week or two. And so I think from that standpoint, the Pac-12 and the Big Ten are sort of a little bit of a step ahead right now, because I don't know. I just have my doubts that the other 3 Power 5 leagues are going to be able to pull off a full-on 12-game deal.
And do you, off that point, as far as building in somewhat of a cushion, do you think the week 0 waiver granted by the NCAA will kind of help it a little bit?
Yeah, exactly. Like my first gut when I see that, as I think it was with a lot of people, is like, really, you're moving the season up?
Mm-hmm.
But I guess the reason they're doing that, from what I can tell, is to build in a more of a window for, it's basically to stretch the season out as long as possible. So if you start the last weekend of August and you have the ability to push your conference title game back into mid or late December, then you've got a pretty good calendar there to get in 10, 11, 12 games with a handful of weeks here and there that are disrupted by the virus. So I think that's the thought process. I mean, on the surface, you look at it and you're like, really? Like, you think that they're going to be playing football a month from now?
Mm-hmm.
And I get it. That's hard to believe. It brings up a whole nother wave of concerns, because if you got a team that's been quarantined because of this, and now they really only have 2.5 weeks of preseason practice, and then they go out there and play a game. I mean, for one thing, it's just going to be sloppy football if it happens. And then for another thing, there's probably an increased risk of injury with that, because the conditioning's not going to be there like it should. And then just it's going to be, for a lot of guys, they won't have been hitting each other for very long. And then they're going to go full speed, full contact, less than a month from now. It's kind of hard to believe, but I guess the idea is just to give the sport a longer window in which to get its games done.
Yeah, I'm actually, this is a wild sort of thought that I had yesterday, because I saw the dire straits that like these MAC schools, these low group of 5 schools are going to be in, and I saw Akron was one. I saw elsewhere UMass is another. Do you think, by the time this is all said and done, we might have like Division I FBS football programs that might have to discontinue their football programs?
That's a sad thought, but yeah, I mean, these programs in the MAC, the Sun Belt, specifically those leagues, they get a lot of their funding. And I'm not talking about for volleyball, for soccer, for tennis. I'm talking about for football too. They get a lot of their funding from student fees, and so the university, in a lot of cases, backs those football programs. And so we're already talking about taking a hit on athletic revenue. So that means they were going to be needing more money probably from the university to maintain their programs in the current status. And now you're also talking about a lot of schools going online and probably having to deal with a decreased enrollment and a lot of angry parents and students who want some of their money back if they're going online. And so, yeah, you could be talking about that. I mean, I really hope it doesn't come to that. That's why it's so important to have a season and to preserve some of those games against power conference schools. Like, I was happy yesterday to see that Ball State, which had been scheduled to play Iowa, but that game, of course, got canceled when the Big Ten wiped non-conference games from their schedule. So Ball State was able to catch on with Iowa State, though. I mean, that would be huge for them, even if Iowa State only has 20% capacity, they can still get a payday that'll at least, come somewhere close to what they were hoping to get from their originally scheduled game with Iowa. And then the other thing too is some folks in the sports legal world have speculated that a lot of these mid-major programs, they're going to try and go to court to collect on the contracts that they had with the Pac-12 and the Big Ten. I mean, because those programs desperately need that money. And you know how far out they schedule in college football. I mean, the ink has been dry on those contracts for years. So, I mean, I think they might have a decent case.
Yeah, they probably do have a case, but in a world where apparently we don't have any money, let's go spend money in court fees and lawyer costs. I mean, it doesn't really sound that productive to me right there off the bat. But staying in college football and with the very few independents that we still have in football, Liberty, UMass, New Mexico State, Army, Notre Dame, what are you hearing kind of on that front of some of those schools being able to temporarily join a conference if we do go conference-only games?
Yeah, I don't know about the other independents. Obviously, it's been well reported that Notre Dame will likely end up kind of as part of the ACC for this 1 year, which is interesting. BYU is one that's interesting. They have some games against Pac-12 teams that they've got to figure out. I think there should be enough sort of openings between the independents who weren't already scheduled to play each other, and then some of those MAC teams that lost the game with the Big Ten, and some of those Mountain West teams that lost games with the Pac-12. I think they should be able to cobble something together, but those programs are really interesting because they are, like you said, independent, so they are not required to follow the lead of what any conference decides. They could do whatever they want to do. So if they want to have a season among themselves, they can do that. If they want to go off and just play FCS teams for a season or something, I mean, they can do that. So there's a lot of flexibility there for those independent teams that I think, if we're being honest, probably helps them here because they can wait longer than the conferences wait to figure out for sure exactly how they want to approach it. Now, I mean, if every conference says that they're only going to play conference games, yeah, then they're in trouble. But, I would actually say that the position that they are in is not all that bad right now because most of them at least still have, something resembling a full schedule in place. And they've got more flexibility than the schools that are required to abide by what their conferences decide.
True, but I wonder with, New Mexico State and UMass, and I can see Notre Dame, BYU, Army, they could absolutely align with a conference. It would make a lot of sense. But with UMass and teams like that, are they going to be able to align with a conference? Are they going to be let in by a certain conference to be able to play games?
I don't know, but here, look at BYU. Okay, their first 4 games have been wiped out because they were against Pac-12 and Big Ten teams. Uh-huh. So all of a sudden and their last game. So 5 of their 12 games have been eliminated. So I don't think the Pac-12 is going to let them in. I mean, I'm just being real. I mean, they had 3 games scheduled against the Pac-12, which was a lot of the rationale that we were hearing for why Notre Dame might get into the ACC because they had so many games scheduled against the ACC. Well, I don't know anything about BYU being admitted to the Pac-12 for this season. So, I mean, I don't think they're going to be able to get into a league. However, with the SEC and the Big 12 and the ACC potentially, having lost at least, a couple of games due to the Pac-12 deal and the Big Ten deal, and then the MAC teams having lost games, I think there will be a way, for BYU to get something close to its full slate without having to join a league.
And I think I agree with you. I think there's got to be some type of wiggle room there for those programs. But switching over to college basketball, and when does the NCAA have to make a decision? And if we do actually play college football, does that guarantee that we'll get basketball is starting up in November?
I think basketball is a lot easier to pull off. Now don't mistake that for we shouldn't care about it until we should. What they shouldn't do is what they did with football, which is wait until it's literally the 11th hour and then be like, oh, what do we do now? I mean, I really really sincerely hope that there are commissioners and athletic directors and NCAA officials laying out plans now for how to make basketball work. Because if there are not, well, what's going to happen is exactly what happened with football, and we're going to get a couple of months down the road, try to figure out what's going on with football, and then all of a sudden everyone's going to be scrambling because basketball is going to be starting up in less than a month, and nobody's going to know what to do. There's going to be disjointed reactions across the country, and this is not good for anybody. It's especially difficult with basketball because if you have everybody that ends up sort of being reclusive and playing conference only, and you don't get those non-conference games, then I think it becomes almost impossible for the NCAA tournament selection committee. Because, I mean, how do you assess a Memphis team? Let's say that if they play 20 AAC games and they go 15-5 in the AAC, how do you judge their NCAA tournament resume against an Iowa team in the Big Ten that goes 12-8? Who's better there? I mean, good luck figuring that out because you have no mutual opponents. You have no, non-conference, resume boosters to base it off of. You can throw the quadrant system out the window.
Yep.
I mean, I just think it's really important that they try to figure out a way now to preserve some semblance of normalcy in college basketball. Otherwise, I mean, it's just going to be a free-for-all with trying to figure out the NCAA tournament structure. And I do think we'll have an NCAA tournament. I don't think there's any doubt about that. I think they will move heaven and earth to make that happen in 2021. Just it's so important financially for so many people and so many schools. But I just worry that the emphasis and the leadership isn't going to be there to preserve some semblance of normalcy that probably could be preserved if they really started thinking now about how to make it happen. But, I think we've probably talked more about it in the last 5 minutes just now than the conference commissioners have because everybody's so worried about football right now. Seriously.
It's
so,
true.
Yeah.
It's true. It's true. In Memphis, Musa, everybody's getting excited for the second straight sort of year, getting a big recruit, big man. What are your thoughts now with Musa Cisse added to the Memphis roster? What can this team be in 2021?
I just feel like it's such a huge sigh of relief for that roster because without Musa, you're just crossing your fingers that Nolly and Williams get waivers. Because without Musa, without Nolly, without Williams, I mean, you really have a pretty thin roster there, both in terms of size and just overall depth. But with Musa, I mean, you can feel optimistic, I think, about Memphis basketball, even if Nolly and Williams don't get waivers. But and it looks like the NCAA is being fairly lenient with waivers this go round.
But
so,
the inconsistencies are always there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, look, don't put your money on it. I'm just saying, maybe the tea leaves are pointing in a positive direction there in terms of those guys getting waivers. I mean, that's the NCAA in Memphis.
Aren't the best of friends.
They aren't. They really aren't. Like they don't seem to like each other. But
Moose's huge though. I mean, there's just no doubt about it because, like I said, I say the NCAA, wants to make a point to Memphis, and they don't grant a waiver to Nolly and Williams. Well, I think with Musa Cisse, this is still, you can still easily make the case for why it's an NCAA tournament team. I don't know if to be making that case without Musa if those guys don't get waivers. So it just takes the pressure off. I feel like the whole season isn't riding on whether or not those guys get waivers now, which is just such a nice feeling to be in July and not have to worry about that so much.
The nerves were the nerves around the city were calmed. No question.
Big
when
exhale.
He decided to sign with Memphis. But David,
yeah,
thank you.
He's doing well. He's doing well in the class of 2021 too. Penny is.
Yeah.
So
2022 now. It depends if Arterio Morris decides to reclassify. But 2022 they got a commit already from him, and it's apparently his dream school. Can't imagine him unless some unforeseen circumstances come about that he would switch that commitment as of right now.
Exactly. So yeah, they're back on track, I think. I mean, and they needed the Musa thing. I mean, it's been well discussed, but with with Mike Miller's departure and Precious, being one and done, and what happened with James. I mean, the Musa thing can't be overstated how big that is. So that's huge.
For sure. He is David Cobb, David W. Cobb on Twitter. That's 2 B's, covering college basketball and college football for CBS Sports. David, thanks so much for joining us, man. Stay safe, stay healthy, and keep killing it.
All right, guys. Thanks. Y'all have fun.
Appreciate it, Cobb.
See you, David. David Cobb. On the other side, we're going to come back, have a couple of news notes out of the MLB. MLB and NFL sort of clumped into one. Somebody bought some stake in a team in the MLB yesterday. We're going to tell you who that is right after the break, right here on Sports 56, 96.1, 87.7.
We are Sports 56.
Without further ado, the Grizzlies finished up their scrimmage schedule yesterday. Tomorrow is the day, the NBA restart. Tomorrow, first game at 5:30. I think we're all excited for that. And because of that, we're bringing on Rob Fisher, the sideline reporter for the Grizzlies, at The Fish Nation on Twitter. Rob, how are you?
I'm fantastic. Finally, a couple of professionals.
Right, man. You hear it? Yeah, I like it. You
Sorry you've had to deal with all those scrubs for so long.
Right.
Yeah, I know,
right.
Man.
Finally. But you got any projects you're working on over at the house today?
Yeah, Mr. Hatchet Man.
Yeah, we're working on the garage because it's been so hot lately. Finished up a sandbox a couple of days ago that's got a little lid on it and everything. It's pretty cool. Okay. And now working on like storage in the garage. Like it's going to be like a locker for the family. So we can put your shoes and your coats and your hats and your fedoras and hang them all up.
At this point, is it just to keep you busy, or are these things you were actually thinking about doing for quite a while? I think
both. I think it started out as wanting to just be busy and wanting to do things, and it's turned into what can we do next? Instead of driving ourselves crazy, not doing anything around the house, we're finding new projects. We still got the big project outside that hasn't been finished yet, the big putting green. So that'll be coming here soon.
Putting green.
Yeah,
Okay.
we got the fringe is in the mail, should be delivered today, and then we can get back out onto the putting green and get that finished. So yeah, it's been fun. We've made our backyards from unlivable to entertaining.
Well, now I definitely know I'm never getting my invite to this state because the property value just went way up, and you can't have me risking costing you any type of money for that one. But
yeah.
Now that the NBA is finally back, how's it been doing the remote broadcast from FedEx Forum? How much different is it?
It's weird. I mean, but I've done it before. I've done 901 FC games remotely, and the first time I did that was awkward. It was weird. It just took a while to get used to. But then the second game, you're kind of into it, and it doesn't even faze you. I think the same with these scrimmages. It's awkward watching it on TV, but the way they have it set up is great. In front of Pete is a massive monitor that's got the program monitor that he can follow along, and then in front of what will be Brevin, which has been me for these scrimmage games, is another monitor that's got like the all 10, the entire floor, so you can kind of see everything developing and stuff like that. So, it took a quarter really to kind of get used to what screen to watch and what to watch for and things like that. But, I think the guys will get into it, and being at the arena and on the floor kind of makes you feel at home a little bit.
Uh-huh.
And having those big monitors in front of you, it felt natural as the game went on. I mean, everything's weird. Everything's kind of bizarre, but it's, you're getting the same look at home that we're getting at the arena. So it's, the hardest thing is like when a foul is called and you're not really sure, or maybe you don't hear the whistle and your play just kind of stops and you have to kind of guess what happened and why play stopped. So that's the hardest thing. But Pete and Brevin, they're pros. They'll get it, and they'll get it quickly. And I think just like the players themselves and just like the viewers at home, it's going to take a while to get used to, but I think we'll get used to it and be fine.
That's the thing I figured would be off is the timing, but it seems like Pete and Brevin have that down at this point. They're used to it. But The Grizzlies last scrimmage last night. They handled the Heat. I know it's just a scrimmage, but I saw some things out of Dylan Brooks. The efficiency was way up. If he can carry that efficiency into this NBA restart, how many games, how good do you think the Grizzlies can be as far as stealing a couple of games?
Well, he wasn't very good in the first two scrimmages, so really wanted to see that in the third scrimmage. And the thing that I like about Dylan is even when he's not shooting well, he attacks it like
he's
a
shooting.
shooter. He keeps shooting, and shoots himself out of it. And he did that yesterday. And I mean, the bottom line is the numbers don't lie when it comes to Dylan Brooks. When Dylan Brooks scores, the Grizzlies are a much better team. When he's averaging 19 points a game in wins, he's averaging 11 points a game in losses. I mean, it's very telling, that the Grizzlies' success a lot of times you can look at Dylan Brooks' box score. So he needs to score. He needs to be what he is defensively, and he'll bring that every night. Now, I'm not concerned about that at all. But he's got to be a threat to score, and if he's going to take 10 shots, well, he's got to make 4 of them. He can't go 2 for 9 night in and night out. So, and he's like we said, he's going to keep shooting. So, you don't want to shoot yourself out of the gym, but hey, I like what I saw yesterday. I don't expect him to just go cold through 8 games. I expect Dylan will be just fine. So, but they need him. They need him to be that scorer. And Kyle Anderson, what he's done scoring in these 3 scrimmages. Small sample size, but if that can continue, now you just have Dylan and Kyle together. If they can just give you enough production offensively, you should be just fine.
I think you're absolutely right. And I think most Grizzlies fans out there after watching the scrimmage yesterday really saw a lot of positive. But is there anything going into the restart to the 8 games into the playoffs that has you a little bit concerned about this Grizzlies team?
The bench concerns me a little bit. Tyus Jones, I'm okay with Tyus. Tyus has missed some floaters. He got one to go yesterday finally, but he's missed a shot that he makes all the time. So I'm not concerned about him. DeAnthony Melton's been really good in shooting threes, DeAnthony Melton. He and Kyle have been kind of the most surprising offensive forces, I think, in these scrimmages. Melton's put up a bunch of threes, and he's done it without hesitation, which has been very good. So those two I haven't been concerned about. Gorgie didn't get in a rhythm in the moments that he got in the scrimmage. Josh Jackson was awful in the scrimmages. He didn't play the second one, but was awful in the first game, one of the worst games I've seen him play, and really was a non-factor yesterday as well. Brandon Clark's been fine. But, Tolliver was good yesterday. But it's that Tolliver, Grayson, Josh Jackson, Gorgie Jang, those guys need to be guys that are going to help this team with their depth. And the Grizzlies bench was so good all season leading up to the hiatus that, they need to be good again. And, the starters, I think, have played well, but the bench, I think, has to just be a little bit better. They were better yesterday, but they weren't very good in the first 2 scrimmages.
So you've probably been asked this question several times, but with these unforeseen circumstances being in the bubble in Disney, do you think it sort of is an advantage for a young team to be playing on a neutral court in these unforeseen circumstances, or do you think it might play against them?
Well, I think it's interesting. You can look at every team that's in the bubble, and you can come up with advantages and disadvantages for every team. For the Lakers, you say, well, the advantages, they're the most talented. Disadvantage, well, they got a lot of veterans. They're playing in a weird situation. Grizzlies, advantage. Well, they got a lot of young guys who might be closer to playing in this sort of situation. So maybe that gives them an advantage. Disadvantage, well, maybe they're not as talented and talent's going to win out. So I think you can look at advantages and disadvantages for a lot of people. But, yeah, I think it's at least for the Grizzlies being a young team and having a lot of guys who basically are sitting in their room playing video games, I don't necessarily think I'd call it an advantage. But what I would call it is it doesn't hurt. I think it's something that benefits them, that they're able to kind of be in a scenario of college, which they're freshly removed from. So, yeah, I think that's, I don't know if I go as far as advantage, but I think it makes the comfort level for this team much better. And when you're talking about this bubble situation and how long you're going to be there, and I mean, we're going on like think 20, 21 days now that they've been there, and they got another 30 to go. So, it's going to be a long time. So I think the comfort level is okay for the Grizzlies. Even better in Jonas Valanciunas. He's going out and fishing every night, and that's making him happy. And, you see some of the other veterans who, they're not the wild, got to get out of the room, got to go out, got to go to the club type of veteran team. It's a veteran team that they just take care of their business. They do what they do. And so I think the comfort level for the Grizzlies is a positive for sure.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we're looking at a guy like Jaren Jackson Jr., who is only 3 years removed from AAU ball. So, I mean, So he's definitely done these sit in hotel rooms all day, go play a game and come back and sit in the hotel type of situations before. But as far as the rest of the teams kind of down there in the bubble trying to get in the playoffs, maybe some of them aren't, like the Spurs, who have basically come out and said, we're just going to see what we got in young talent, and if the chips fall our way, they fall our way. How quickly do you see some of these other teams kind of start to do the same thing and just give up?
Well, it'll be interesting for the playoff teams. When you're set in your seeding, and even it's different this year because if you're battling for 4th and 5th, what's the difference? There's no home court, so it'll be interesting to see in 8 games. The Lakers, the Bucks, the Raptors, teams like that. Do they rest guys in the final few games? That'll remain to be seen. As far as the other teams, at the bottom, things could be determined rather quickly. If New Orleans has got 2 really tough games out of the gate, and then their 3rd game is against the Grizzlies. If the Grizzlies can take care of business against Portland and San Antonio, and then when they take on New Orleans, if New Orleans gets clipped in their first couple of games with Utah and the Clippers, all of a sudden now that game becomes huge, and the Grizzlies could almost eliminate New Orleans after 3 games. Now, if that happens, does New Orleans then just say, hey, we're shutting Zion down for the rest of the season? So I think the first week will determine how teams are going to play going forward because there are such huge games right out of the gate. I mean, Portland, another one. How many games back do you decide, okay, Dame, you're done for the year. We're going to shut you down because you've had some nagging injuries. So I think the first week will determine a lot as far as what teams are going to play for.
I think the bubble has been very successful, and I think it's done a really good job in sort of nullifying the spread of COVID-19. There's obviously none in there as of right now, but I read this story yesterday, and it's about the NBA Players Association Executive Director, Michelle Roberts, and she said that, and I know that COVID-19 is not going away anytime soon, but she says the bubble might have to be used for next season as well. Do you think that when you look at the length of the season being 82 games and then having to go through playoffs, do you think that's really an option to use it for a full season?
Oh, man, I can't. I mean, to do it for 8 games, I think it's very difficult.
Right.
I can't imagine for an 80-game season. I mean, you're basically talking about leaving your family for 7 months.
Yeah.
I can't imagine. But at this point, we don't know what's coming next month. I mean,
No
we
question.
don't know what's coming in 2 months. So to try and speculate what's going to happen in 6 months, we really have no idea. And I think much like we saw in the last few months, everything's on the table at this point. Until we figure out the vaccine, until we figure out how to really neutralize this thing, everything is on the table. So would I count it out? No, I wouldn't, because we don't know what the future holds. But it would, being in
it's
a bubble,
hard sell, no question, for a full season.
Doubt. 4 months ago, I said publicly 4 months ago, playing in front of fans is not an option. That's ridiculous. That's never going to happen. Mm-hmm. But then we adjust because it's our only option.
Yeah.
And now I think the NBA's done a great job of making it look. I think the appearance of the games looks great, and I think they've done a great job with that. So to say no way that happens, I don't know. 4 or 6 months from now, I could change my tune because it might be our only option.
Yeah, that's just the times that we're living in, that there's so much unknown about it that everything could change tomorrow. But I really want to get your opinion on this because I'm so glad this happened last night because I know how much you hate fake tough guys. So I really want to know what you think of Joe Kelly.
I'm cool with Joe Kelly.
You're cool with it?
Yeah, I'm fine with him. I'm fine with him kind of acting like a baby and doing what he did last night. I mean, I don't know. Guys act a little tougher than they are in baseball. My biggest problem with the situations like last night, baseball's got, and I played baseball, so, there are a lot of times where people can say things about baseball or how to speed up the game or what's wrong with baseball, and I might have a different opinion than others just because I played, but the one thing that bothers me more than anything in baseball, you want to speed up the game, and we talk so much about got to speed up the game, and what are we doing? And pitchers with pitch limits or pitchers with minimum batter limits, and I mean we're changing the game. One way to speed up the game is when a guy wants to go, just stay where you're at. There has never ever been a reason why guys should come out of the bullpen. Ever.
Yeah.
And really, there's no reason for guys to come off the bench because all we do is stand around, yell at each other for a little bit, and then everybody goes back to their dugouts, and now you wasted 6 minutes of guys just acting like they're really tough.
Yeah.
If you want to go, let's go. If you come out of the dugout, you're suspended. If you come out of the bullpen, you're suspended. If you come into the infield, you're suspended. If a batter wants to go after a pitcher, let him go. Let the guys on the field break it up. Let the coaches come out of the dugout. Let them break it up, and the umpires break it up because it's not going to last long. Nobody wants to throw a punch. Nobody wants to get hit. It's all just a big macho man kind of feeling, and it's a big waste of time.
Little measuring contest.
If they want to go, let them go, man.
Drop the gloves. Let's do it.
Little measuring contest is what that was last night. I thought that was really weak. If you're going to clear the bench and not throw punches, I'm sorry. I don't jive with that. But
even a push. Nobody's pushed.
Yeah, no one did anything.
We can't push anybody. We got a social distance, Rob. We don't want to turn into the Marlins.
My God. I mean,
but if they're all negative,
it's just stupid.
Yeah, but you just mentioned speeding up of the game. What do you think of the extra innings rule, and what do you think of the minimum 3 batter rule?
The minimum 3 batter rule, I don't like, just because I like the part of the game of matchups. I hate pitching to a batter, having the pitching change, pitching to a batter, having the pitching change, and all that stalling and wasting of time. I understand that. But here's another way to speed up the game. Why when we want to change pitchers do we have to walk out to the mound and walk so slowly to give the guy even more time to warm up at the bullpen? Why can't the manager say, hey, change pitcher? And then it's done with.
See, that would be a lot easier. And if we know we're just going to do the matchup, you face a batter, then you face a batter, then shouldn't the guy already be pretty warm in the bullpen?
Yes. And the manager can just say, hey, time out. We're changing pitchers. Pitcher comes off the field, new pitcher comes in, boom, let's go. Why do we have to walk out to the mound, talk? The umpire comes out and goes, all right, we got to break it up. And then the manager says, okay, well, we're going to change pitchers now. And it's like, we just wasted all that time for nothing. I mean, there should never be a trip to the mound unless there's an injury. If a guy's injured and you want to send the trainer and the manager out there, fine, got no problem with that. When it's first and second, nobody out, and the manager has to come out to tell them to be aware of the bunt, well, who the hell doesn't know there's be aware of the bunt in that situation? So why do we have to have that meeting on the mound? These are professional baseball players. They know the deal. Or sit in the dugout and say, hey, watch it. They might bunt here. I mean, those little things, I think, could speed up the game, and those are things that I think just annoy people, the constant visits to the mound. And I know they put a limit on those, but it's still too big of a limit, and it's unnecessary. It doesn't need to happen. And so those are things that I think Major League Baseball needs to look at to speed up a game, and those are things that don't change the game at all.
You know, the shocking thing out of that situation would be that somebody would actually be willing to bunt in Major League Baseball. I think I'd fall out of a chair if they decided to play small ball for once. But Rob, before
it was really interesting watching. And you asked about the guy starting on second base. I don't know. I don't like that it's such a bizarre kind of addition to the game. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of it, but okay, whatever. I wasn't a huge fan of the wild card, and I love it now. So
Yeah.
let's do it, and let's see how it works. And it certainly is compelling to see how strategy will work in extra innings. I was watching the A's and the Angels the other night, and the Angels are the road team, but the A's had a big lineup coming up in the bottom of the inning. So the Angels didn't bunt. They were just trying to score as many runs as they could. They end up not putting any across, and then the A's come up and they end up, then the A's come up and they got a guy on second with nobody out, and the game is still tied, and they decide to swing away, which kind of surprised me in that situation because why not just go for the run and go for the win? The A's end up hitting a grand slam and winning the game. But I think those things are going to make it very interesting to see how strategy is played in extra innings. So I'm okay with it. I think I'll learn to adjust and learn to like it, and we won't have games that'll be going, all night, going 17, 18 innings.
Yeah, Rob, real quick, before we let you go, because we are up against the break, I do want to run this by you, and I meant to text you this a couple weeks ago when the announcement was made that St. Louis was going to be having a basketball series against Memphis. I came up with what I think is the perfect name for the series. Are you ready for it?
Yeah.
All right. It will be called the Rob Fisher Battle of Hoop City on the Mississippi Bowl on the hardwood.
Oh, I like it.
You can use it. I will give it to you.
That's a lot of verbiage. That's a lot of verbiage there, Drew.
It's going to be tough to fit that on a damn T-shirt.
I want it.
I think it's a great name.
That's a lot.
But I like it. I think we certainly need to come up with a name for it. The big battle on the river. The Hoop City Battle on the River, something like that. But I like my name involved in it, too.
Of course.
That's probably most important.
Hey, down the line, can I get my name involved? I'm a St. Louis guy.
Man.
Down the line. I'm not asking
you gotta
right
earn
now.
your stripes.
I got to earn them. I'm not saying I need it now.
The Rob Fisher and Gabe Kuhn Hoop City Battle on the River presented by,
Hey.
Cobalt Tools.
Gotta be a sponsor.
Cobalt Tools. I love it. He is Rob Fisher at The Fish Nation on Twitter. Real quick, I have to ask you about Lou Williams, just real quick before we get you out.
Have you eaten a Magic City?
Are we being unfair to Lou Williams? Was he just picking up food? Do you buy that?
I don't buy it, but even if it was, have someone else pick up the food or pick it up curbside. I mean, you just got to be a little smarter. I mean, how are you not aware that people will see you?
Yeah,
and people know your situation. I mean, it was just a dumb situation, regardless of whether he was just getting food or not. It was pretty stupid.
Yeah,
but have somebody get it for you or pick it up curbside so you don't have to go inside. That was pretty stupid. But hey, it's an NBA player doesn't surprise me at all. I've never had their wings though. I do want to.
Yeah, I have been. Look, we have gotten some rave reviews via Twitter, via the text line. I mean,
Kevin Harlan really likes them.
Well, no, Kevin Harlan said he wants to try them.
Oh, okay.
There's a difference there. But Rob, thank you for joining us, man.
Hey, gentlemen, always a pleasure. And if I could, just mention Odds Couple on Grind City Media back this week. NBA preview. That'll drop tomorrow, NBA preview of the season. So Brevin Knight's going to join us. So check that out at Grind City Media, the Odds Couple podcast. You can subscribe wherever you subscribe to your podcasts and get the Odds Couple with myself and Lang Whitaker.
Absolutely. Be safe, Rob.
All right, fellas.
Appreciate it.
See you, Rob. Rob Fisher. Magic City Wings. Again, we might have to get takeout one day and try this thing out.
I mean, I might just have to drive down to Atlanta and find out myself.
Yeah,
because you should. You should have that learning experience.
I got Saturday off. I guess I can drive down. I guess I can make a 10-hour round trip.
That would not be fun. Just for some wings. You have to order
if
them
they're
when you're
as
about
good
20
as they
minutes
say,
then you have to dine in if you drove that far.
You're exactly right. Because my back's gonna hurt. I'm gonna need to stretch my legs.
Kick your feet up. Enjoy the night out.
Really, enjoy myself. If I'm there, I might as well.
We will continue hour 3 right after this. We will come back with the Wheel of Conversation. I'm really excited for this. I'm hoping it lands on some relationship advice. I'm really wanting to know. I'm wanting to see it. I'm wanting to hear it. But we'll do that right after this, right here on Sports 56, 96.1, 87.7.
Greg Gaston and Eli.
Give it to you because of HIPAA, but what's going on with the Miami Marlins literally is scary. Baltimore, New York Yankees, the Miami Marlins, and the Phillies, they aren't playing right now. Now, we still have baseball. They're going to make some of these games up, but, yeah, they ain't playing. And I just think right now, I hate to say this, am I wrong to just say stick a damn fork in Miami and say peace? Like, is that wrong?
We'll talk about it.
Oh, I guess we will. But before we get to that, I think we'll talk about this stuff maybe in the leadoff, but I'm going to have to get in the box. I'm going to have to brave COVID. But before I do that, make sure that if you are out there braving COVID and you're going to work every day and you got a family and you care about your family and you're driving to work, oh, you need renter's insurance. Oh, you just bought a new boat because life is doing good. You need renter's insurance. Did you just move into a new place? How about renter's insurance, not recreational insurance, or umbrella, motorcycle, home, life. Very important right now because so many people have it tied to work and so many people are losing jobs, and you can get it now for pennies on the dollar. MemphisFarmers.com. Check out my friend Chad Gatlin. I'm going to tell you right now, you're going to love him just as much as I do. Go to MemphisFarmers.com or call him at 901-235-1176. That's 901-235-1176. Gabe, I'm in the box, baby.
It's only right to start here since you just referred to it. The Marlins are postponed through at least Sunday. The Nats refuse to play them. I don't blame them for doing that.
Thought we were gonna have
so now, in total, as of right now, their next scheduled game is against the Phillies, ironically, who they played to start the year. And that's next Tuesday on the 4th. So they're missing 5 games in total. 5 games. And remember, this is 60 games in 66 days. So, how does the MLB go about getting these missed games in?
Unfortunately, if MLB wants to save anything, I am happy with what the Marlins have started out this season. They went in 2-1. They are 2 wins. They only have 1 loss. But guess what? Y'all are all sick. Your best pitcher is out. Your catcher, your best hitter, everybody that plays on your team that's actually good somehow caught the dead gum virus. I'm being dead serious. It's very, very sad. And I just don't understand why baseball hasn't. Do you know how many positive tests have come out outside of the Marlins in baseball?
0.
So hold on. Where's the problem? Where is it? Oh, it's Miami. How about Miami doesn't travel? Miami doesn't play this year. MLS has already done this. This is a weird year. You can't sit there and say Miami Marlins or any other players, oh, this is unfair. I don't even think the Marlins are going to think this unfair. Do you know what the Miami Marlins are saying? Derek Jeter's praying that he can go hang out with Hannah, his beautiful wife, by the way. God, she's gorgeous. Do you think she had a baseball? Or do you think that he just said, when he was signing it, nah, I'm actually going to keep her, and she never got one? And if you don't know what I'm talking about, Jeter used to sign a baseball and leave it, and then he would leave the house, and basically his butler would give them a baseball and tell the lady thank you. If y'all ever didn't know that, read it. There's a very good book out there about that. But don't you think right now, it's a very simple situation. Rob Manfred has to be proactive. Lou Williams, and Adam Silver, I know yesterday I'm don't give this guy, don't call him a genius because you can't put the NFL in a damn bubble. Well, you know what? Adam Silver, I'm not saying he's a genius, but he might be the best damn commissioner in sports. In fact, I don't even think it's a question. Lou Williams went and got wings. And just because it was at a shake joint, 10 days. 10 days. He can test clean. They ain't letting him out early. It's 10 days.
Speaking of which, they did test today, 0 of 344 yet again.
Oh, yes. Oh, and by the way, do you expect, and honestly, see, I would be shocked if somebody gets it. Would you be shocked now after this amount of time that they've spent in the bubble? if somebody actually tested positive?
I think a low number, 1 or 2, I wouldn't be too surprised. But
Really?
I mean, it's just 2 rounds of tests where they have 0. So
I just feel
mean,
like once you're like, if you're locked in the bubble, and I watched the whole Rachel Nichols thing where they talked about even the packages in their food that comes in and how serious they take it, and they spray everything down. Like, I'm telling you, I don't think that there's going to be any issues with the NBA. I am literally willing to tell you, I am 99.9% positive they will not only just crown a champion, there's no way, I will say there will be no way, no more than 5 positive tests, if any at all.
So long story short, to answer the question, you're saying just cut the Marlins out.
Cut the Marlins out. There's only, let me tell you something. In your body, if you have cancer, right, you don't want it to spread throughout the body, correct? So if you have cancer, even in my little brain, let's just use that, you would cut it out and leave me with just a little piece of brain left. But at least I still got some brain, right? I'm alive still, right? No, for real. I hate to say this. I'm not saying, Miami, you're a cancer. But I'm saying, Miami, you could be a cancer to the entire season. And the risk is so outweigh the reward. And by the way, if you cut the Miami Marlins, how many baseball fans would actually know that they would that they're missing?
That's a great point. Now, I want to move on to some more MLB news. Astros-Dodgers last night. Joe Kelly threw right directly at Carlos Correa's head. I mean, very, very simple after that. Joe Kelly struck him out, and then he started yelling at him. He called him a B word.
Yes, it was beautiful.
And then a gentleman's squabble ensued, is what I will call it, because there was no punches, no pushes, there was nothing. But is Joe Kelly your new hero after this?
Absolutely. But there's 2 things that I need to say too. I love Joe Kelly for the way he handled and struck out Carlos Correa. Okay, this is going to sound so hard, and this is so difficult for me, but when I played baseball, I threw the ball really damn fast. Real fast. Like, low 90s, by the way, back in the day, was gas. You know that, by the way? Did you know, like, low 90s back in the day was like, you are throwing some
You're pumping
heat,
it. You're pumping it, man.
Dude, low 90s today is like weak sauce. Like, these dudes are like, he threw a 96 mile an hour
The difference is the longevity,
behind
though.
his head.
The longevity.
Yeah, they don't last as long. No, they don't. But the guys throw so dead-gum hard, and this is what scares me. And I know you're like probably sitting there going, what's the difference between taking 90 upside the head and 100? Believe it or not, I actually watched a video and a doctor talk about it. 100 mile an hour heater upside your head compared to a 90 could kill you. 90, more than likely, no. 100, it literally could. I don't know if I like baseball policing itself as it has for so long, the way that it does now, because when you got guys who can throw 104 miles an hour, and you can, I mean, I know you're going to have a ball slip, your people are going to get hit. It's baseball, deadgummit. You got to step in the box. You got to be awesome. But intentionally throwing it, even a cheater like the Houston Astros, who stole the World Series. And I had to defend Joe Kelly last night because somebody were like, Joe Kelly wasn't even on the Dodgers when they played in 2017. Yeah, he wasn't. He was on the deadgum Boston Red Sox, the team that didn't get to go to the World Series because the Astros beat them. So they could have played the Dodgers in the World Series. So yes, Joe Kelly has every right to be ticked off. Don't sit there and say, he didn't play for the Dodgers. He got beat by Houston, who was cheating right before they made it to the World Series.
And I can say with a lot of confidence that I don't care if you're on the Marlins, I don't care if you're on the Orioles, this should offend you if you're a baseball player.
This should offend you, and it should. And unequivocally it should offend you. And you know how I would have taken care of this if I was Rob Manfred? I would have just basically taken the 2017 trophy away from them. I wouldn't have let Mr. Crane act like he was a ball or shot caller because he's a billionaire, hold his trophy. And I sure as heck wouldn't let Carlos Correa in interviews say, we did nothing but earn that damn championship. Carlos Correa is the one that if I'm a pro baseball player, that's the dude I'm throwing out. I know Altuve hit that home run off of Chapman. I know that, Altuve maybe came up bigger in some of those games. But Carlos Correa has been the most outspoken a-hole about, we didn't cheat, we didn't do this, So if you're going to throw at anybody, maybe not Bregman, just jack up Carlos Correa. But I did like the fact that Joe Kelly struck him out and then called him a B.
That was fun. It was fun. Look.
What do you think's going to happen
tonight? The Astros have it coming. I'm sorry. Like,
dude,
it really is what it is. And I don't like throwing at heads. I don't want them to get hit in the head by a ball.
Scary.
But you got to know it's coming. You really do have to know it's coming.
You do. And by the way, can I ask you something honestly? How do you step in the box? And I'm going to ask you this truthfully. You're a pro ball player, and you know you screwed up, and you know that you're in trouble. How would you feel stepping in the box with a guy who throws over 100?
Uncomfortable.
Very uncomfortable. I'm just saying, being an Astro ain't easy.
NFL time. Aaron Rodgers was with Kyle Brandt on the Ringer, and some interesting things came out of this. Kyle Brandt asked about if the Packers may move on from Rodgers and if Rodgers will end up in a Packer uniform when it's all said and done, when he retires. And this is what Rodgers had to say. Just look at the facts. They traded up. They drafted him, talking about Jordan Love. Obviously, they like him. They want to play him. And I get it. I really do. I don't harbor any ill will about it. Like, was I bummed out? Of course. Who wouldn't be? I wanted to play my entire career in Green Bay. I love the city. I grew up there. But look, I get it. I see it completely clearly, and I'm not bitter about it. It just kind of is what it is at this point. After hearing this quote, is there any chance anymore that you think Aaron Rodgers will end his career as a Green Bay Packer?
Unequivocally, no. I'm basically, that sounds like you already have one foot out the door, right? That basically says, hey, yo, we were 13-3 last year, you idiots. We were one game away from the Super Bowl, you idiots. I'm Aaron bleeping Rodgers, you idiots. And you get a quarterback to replace me? Like 3 years down the road like I did Brett Favre? No, get me out. I know I got 2 years left on my deal. I want out. I'm telling you, if I'm another team, you know what I'm doing? I'm serious. Trevor Lawrence or Aaron Rodgers. If you had an opportunity, would you give up that first, maybe 2 first-round picks or something? I want Aaron Rodgers right dead gum now. I'm calling the Green Bay Packers and saying, give me that bad man. You know what I mean?
I think it's just sad to think about what the Packers did with their draft. Instead of going to get Aaron Rodgers, a piece, T. Higgins, Michael Pittman Jr., a good wide receiver, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, they decided, okay, let's go get your replacement. And I thought it was a major sign of disrespect for one of the great all-time quarterbacks.
By the way, he said he had 4 fingers of tequila and then FaceTime.
Yeah, he did, didn't he?
How long do you think it took?
Didn't he?
Because he can't even chug a beer. How long did it take him to get that tequila down?
It's a sipping tequila. Tequila is a sipping liquor.
Dude, I shoot that stuff. Maybe
4 fingers worth of tequila?
No,
you ain't shooting that.
I ain't shooting
you ain't
that
shooting
either.
that, buddy.
Because then you know what I'm doing? I don't know, actually. It's called blackout. Hopefully I make it home. But whatever you do, coming up next, we're talking Ole Miss.
Another player who tested positive. So 18 now in their whole group. 16 players.
That's a quorum.
Right. No Phillies, though. No Phillies. However, there was a
no symptomatic.
There was a visiting clubhouse attendant that did test positively. So it all came from that either that hotel, that bus, that airplane, that locker room, but I doubt just the locker room because you would have been around the stadium, although the attendant did get it from the locker room, but he was next to players who were asymptomatic. Right. So we don't know. And Dr. Fauci commended baseball for handling the situation thus far well. So that is obviously good news. Our friend down in Tampa joins us now, TJ Reeves, as he gets ready, as the Buccaneers get ready to hopefully play some football, but he's got his eyes, I know, ready to look at Southwind this week. And you've been to many of the Memphis golf tournaments when you lived here, when you were a student here, and as a member of PGA Tour Radio. Good afternoon, TJ. How are you?
Always good to be with you boys. I still remember sitting with Wolo and Stats. I'm not trying to make you feel worse that you're not hanging out there on the Wednesday before the tournament this time.
But
we sat there and hung that one Wednesday afternoon together right there as you overlooked the driving range. Love doing that, working with PGA Tour. Right there by 18. Love working PGA Tour Radio for several years and being in Memphis a couple of different times for that. So I have great affinity for this because remember I was born and my first few years of my existence lived in Memphis, and we would always come back in the summer to visit family and visit relatives, and I would frequently be at this tournament. I've joked with you that I was there. I am told I was there as a young TJ on the day that Geiberger shot the 59. I don't honestly really remember that. I remember kind of going to the golf tournament as a little guy in those years. But I vividly do remember, and you always laugh at this story, so I'll bring it back, that Greg Norman, before he won, which was the late 80s that Norman won with birdie at 16, 17, and 18. Birdied the 70th, 71st, and 72nd hole to win. This is early 80s when Hal Sutton, I believe, ended up winning at Southwind. We were there on the day where Greg Norman got into it with a heckler. And I kid you not, I'm standing there with my father and with a couple of other people that we had gone to the tournament to see, and Norman is standing 10 feet away from us, ready to fight this fan with his caddy, I believe it's Tony Navarro, trying to stop him, and all of a sudden a Memphis police officer is there. It was crazy right in front of us because Greg Norman was ready to fight this heckler that day.
Beer was flowing.
The beverages were flowing, so I have some fond remembrances. Obviously, this tournament is intertwined with Memphis, and they're going to talk a lot about the River City, obviously, this weekend with the coverage.
They are in something, TJ, and we all can go back to our first tournaments, kind of when it was hatched. And for me, it was summer in 1980, record hot summer of all time, never to be touched. I'm not talking any janky real feel stuff. I'm talking real thermometer, high temperatures, 105 in the shade. Heat index would have been Baghdad type heat index then, and we went and I didn't know which end of a golf club to hold, but I knew I liked it, watching on TV, and loved going, and hadn't missed many times since then.
By the way, Hal Sutton won in '85, and then it was a lot later. Greg Norman finally won at TPC Southwind.
I'm telling you,
97.
85 was the year that Norman tried to fight the guy right next to a teenage TJ and Grandpa Reed.
That was at
and
Colonial.
That was.
And at Colonial, and I think we'll all agree to this. One of the great golf holes on earth is 16 at Colonial.
It's my favorite hole in Memphis. Did you know that when you said that? I think I've told you that.
I did not, Dave.
That's my favorite.
No, you have not. No, you have not.
Yeah.
You have not told me that.
I love
that.
But
there's so many moments that you think about and you remember from this tournament. Of course, Danny Thomas was such a big part of this tournament, and I know we're so many years beyond him. FedEx has now done a fantastic job of carrying the torch on with St. Jude. But I still remember being at the Pro-Am around Danny Thomas and Phil Donahue when they were both humongous deals, and they were wearing
Tony Thomas. Mm-hmm.
They were wearing like bowling shirts. The one said Marlowe's husband, and the other said Marlowe's dad on the back of them.
Right.
And the gallery was 5 deep to watch those guys play. So yeah, you have a lot of remembrances of this event. Dustin Johnson with the walk-off hole-out was a great way to end the open version of this as opposed to the invitational. So there have been some moments, and it's a lot of fun to watch it unfold.
As sitting vice president, Dan Quayle came and played, and he was a much better golfer than he was vice president.
He was a good golfer. He had a good swing.
He sure did.
He did. No, I was very, very impressed by his swing. Look, you go back to Gerald Ford's hole-in-one. You have so many great moments from Memphis
Michael
history.
Jordan.
63 years of continuous golf here, which I believe is the 6th longest of any city in America. It's incredible, and Jimmy Ogle was going over it yesterday a little bit in case people missed that, because that was much later in the afternoon than we are now. And you go back to the 1940s when there was an 11-match win streak that was stopped of Byron Nelson's, and it was stopped at Chickasaw Country Club when that was the tour stop in Memphis. And you had the old Colonial, the new Colonial, TPC Southwind, and now we've got WGC. And I you have to have big sponsors, good sponsors, in order to have that kind of longevity. We've had people
we got the best
that have stepped in, but we wouldn't be a WGC without FedEx. There's no question about that, and that's we can't do anything but thank them for now. But you've had over all these years great sponsors and great golf courses and great people that love the sport that have made sure it stayed here in this city.
Well, and it deserves to stay there, and the tour has done a fantastic job of taking care of markets that have been long-standing markets and finding sponsors, and FedEx obviously stepped up. I still remember, you just jogged my memory, the year you actually were you riding around with me on the golf cart the year on PGA Tour Radio when I looked to my right and all of a sudden Joe Theismann was standing there and I interviewed Joe Theismann, who was there as part of FedEx, and I'm like, how cool a job is this that we're walking and calling golf shots, and here's Joe Theismann in the gallery walking as a fan at the FedEx.
Dave hooked you up.
Well,
Dave tight with Joe
I got news for you. Joe lives here, plays a lot of golf at Miramichi and Southwind. He still lives here. I saw him a couple Sundays ago.
He's Dave and Theismann. They're besties, man.
Well, I asked Joe. I tell you, here's what I said. I said, Joe actually is sort of rehabbing a shoulder. He actually had stem cell treatment, just so you know, and it's working for him. So I'm not the only person that it worked for. And I said, Joe, when you're a little bit better, we'll play some golf. But wow, can I get you on the radio now? He goes, no. I'm not doing radio for 6 months or so. Not until all this Washington stuff dies down.
Wow. Well, you can understand because he, in a lot of ways, is synonymous with that name, with the name that nobody wants to say anymore, the name Redskins, because they won world championships with him there.
Yep.
So it's understandable on that point. But it's really neat to have this event there and have the whole country be able to see what a great city Memphis is and be part of the. I still remember you lined up for us. So thank you for the 87th time. That you lined up for us to go eat at Corky's on the Friday night, and there had been a weather delay with tornado warnings coming through. It was a horrible night. We went to Corky's, the PGA Tour Network crew, and walked past about 40 people to go sit down because somebody named Wolo made a phone call, and my guys thought that I knew, like, the mayor or something to get us that table. That
That's all it takes,
I just know my man Wolo. He can snap his fingers.
That was the Ben Crane winning year.
Yes, the year that I was there too was Brian Gay had run away with it. And let me tell you one other quick story. This was 09 stats that I was there with you guys, and Brian Gay had won at Hilton Head by 10 shots, and then he won, I want to say, by 6 or 7 because he became the first. I believe he was the first golfer other than Phil Mickelson or Tiger Woods to win multiple tour events by at least 6 shots since Arnold Palmer had done it in the same year, because Gay won 2 of them by that much. Phil and Tiger had done it. I just remember something about that stat. And you never know.
Give us the TJ lock for this year.
Yeah. You never know in these events what's going to happen with Gay running away with it. But that year, the son of Julius Boros, and I know we're going in the Wayback Machine, former golf major champion in the 60s and the 70s, won the PGA Championship. I think he still has the record for being the oldest PGA champion ever for the PGA Championship they're going to play next week now. His son, Guy Boros, was playing in this event, but he wasn't supposed to be playing in this event. He was supposed to be playing in the then, I think, the Nationwide or the Buy.com, whatever the current Korn Ferry Tour, the third, the AAA version was. He was supposed to be playing in Knoxville, Tennessee in that tournament. And because of withdrawals, he got called because a couple of guys withdrew. He got called on like Wednesday night. Can you get here from Knoxville? We'll give you a later tee time. Can you get here? He drove all night and the following morning to get from Knoxville to Memphis. And without having played a practice round or anything, shot something in the 60s. And suddenly I was with him on the Friday, and he put together another great round. I remember what's the par 3 on the front right by the FedEx complex. I'm trying to remember, is that 4 or 5
it's
coming
4.
around the curve?
It's 4.
Okay, on 4, my man Guy Boros almost jarred it for an ace. And we're going, who is this guy and where did he come from? Because he almost on the fly made a hole-in-one and then tapped in for birdie and was up on the leaderboard with Brian Gay, and then he fell off on the final day, shot like 43 or something on the back nine Sunday, and cost himself a really good paycheck on no notice that day. But it was, again, to the point, you just never know in these tournaments who might step up and get it done. Now, obviously, it's a much higher-end field here with more notable names as an invitational and a World Golf Championship event, but it's a lot of fun to reminisce about this tournament, for sure.
So since you mentioned Brian Gay, he's actually playing in the Barracuda in Tahoe. So the guy is still around. All right, you got to give us your winner. And believe me, you will not influence me.
So you've not made the picks yet. I don't know what your picks are.
Well, we make our picks later.
That's right. So you're wanting intel again from me, because I made the point last week that how do you know from one week to the next, especially with this lineup? Again, Dustin Johnson has been playing horribly as of late, but who's to say he doesn't come back to familiar surroundings here and tear it up in advance of the PGA Championship?
He went.
But what about
80,
Dustin Johnson? What about DJ's chance?
He went 80, 80, 78 his last 3 rounds. Withdrew, said he had a bad back, and now he's right back here. You want to go with him? Go ahead.
Yeah, that just gives you an indication of what can happen because it has been bad for him. So,
and this is after he won a tournament this year since the restart. So who knows? It's a hard game.
It is. Tiger made it look so easy. I saw the stat earlier this week from Doug Ferguson, and I think I got this right. I believe Tiger Woods was number 1 in the world for 281 consecutive weeks.
Wow.
281 consecutive weeks. So Jon Rahm is the new number 1 in the world.
Yeah.
Ferguson went back and looked at the previous 281 weeks to Jon Rahm being named number 1. 28 players have been number 1 in the last 281 weeks. And that does include Tiger somewhere in there, I think.
281 weeks. We're talking 5.5 years he was number 1.
Yep.
5.5 years. And
it's like 28 guys. And it was Tiger Woods in the early 2000s.
Breaking college football news as we speak from your buddy Brett McMurphy that you've helped with us have him on with us. Notre Dame will play the ACC schedule.
Wow.
Here are their home games: Clemson, Duke, FSU, Louisville, and Syracuse. On the road at Boston College, Georgia Tech, North Carolina, Pitt, and Wake Forest.
Not
5
surprising.
home, 5 road.
That would be my reaction.
So
Not
what is
surprising.
that? Is that a 10-game conference schedule?
That's correct.
Sounds like it.
And no non-conference. They're going no non-conference, or are they going to do 10 and 1?
They're slated to open with Navy, and it's supposed to be at Annapolis, which is the first time ever that Notre Dame would play Navy on their campus. And so I have not seen anything definitive that they are not playing that game. And obviously Navy is an American Conference team.
Or Arkansas.
I was just going to say that bumps Arkansas out. If they do a 10 and 1 and they open with Navy, say goodbye to the Arkansas game.
It could. ACC championship game will be played December 12th or December 19th in Charlotte at Bank of America Stadium.
Are they allowed to play in that?
Pac-12.
Are they? Is Notre Dame going to be included? Because
I would assume so.
Okay, because
they're going to take the two. They're going to take the 2 highest conference game winning percentage. So I assume Notre Dame would be in it. And from the Pac-12. Ryan Cartgee that we had on Friday, he is reporting that USC's crosstown rivalry with UCLA could be moved up to September 26th.
Wow.
As part of the Pac-12's new schedule.
Because they want to make sure they get it in.
2020, man.
Man.
Here we go.
Wow. That is interesting. Last thing for TJ Reeves then, along those lines, but not college. What about the NFL? What are you hearing? It seems as if everyone is saying no NFL exhibition games. What about the regular season? Where do you think this stands right now, today?
Well, the first steps are that the players are getting back in the buildings here, and so the helicopter paparazzi coverage of Tom Brady has shifted from the downtown private high school football field where he was holding some informal workouts with his teammates to now full coverage of him pulling into the facility the other day and getting a COVID test, which he did. So the first time Tom Brady has been in the building is now this week, a couple of days ago. And so the excitement level is still here, but it's very weird right now because we have uncertainty on it doesn't look like there are going to be any preseason games. The NFL has not made an official announcement as of yet, but it would be one at the most, apparently. I know Buccaneers head coach Bruce Arians had a press conference yesterday with the media on Zoom where he said we're not going to get a chance to play preseason games, and everybody ran with that as, okay, they're not going to be able to play them. NFL hasn't announced that yet. So you're in a very odd time where these guys get together, try to practice some, have only a limited number of padded practices. I mean, this is not the old school NFL or college football line up and go 2 a day in full pads. They have now restrictions on that with the collective bargaining agreement, so there's only so much full padded practice that you can have, and then you got to get ready to play. And then the whole testing thing, I came on with you talking about the testing and the Marlins and Major League Baseball, and it's the same thing with the NFL, the daily tests and what happens if there's outbreaks and what are the protocols and what are you going to do. You got to have all that figured out here in the next few weeks. I am very optimistic, though, that we will see the NFL and we may see it right on time. I don't have any indication that it wouldn't be right on time right now for them to ramp up and to begin to play in September. We'll see.
We will see. TJ, as always, we'll talk about it again next week. Hopefully we know a little bit more. Always a pleasure, my friend.
Always great to be with you guys and looking forward to everything cranking up this weekend with the NBA. And we've got baseball back, hockey back, the Lightning are back in the playoff picture.
I got to make picks. Should I pick the Lightning? Are they any good?
Who knows how anybody's going to be any good, but the Lightning were rolling before the stoppage, and we'll see what the stoppage did to them. But, yeah, I mean, we got the hockey, we got the basketball, we got baseball. Hopefully we'll have football soon. NASCAR going on. The golf is there in Memphis, so at least we have some sports back to talk about. It is a wild time in 2020. Be well, boys.
Thank you. TJ Reeves, our friend down in Tampa. We got to take a timeout. When we return, more news on the Asian
last night against the Heat, and they killed them. They absolutely handled the Heat 128-110. Obviously, it's a scrimmage, so I don't want to take too much stock into that. But we can take stock into the fact that Dylan Brooks was on last night, man. He has been struggling ever since he got that contract extension. But he came out last night firing 23 points on 8 of 12 shooting. John Morant had a monstrous alley-oop dunk last night, but he had a double-double, 22 points and 12 assists. And I think if those two guys can sort of replicate what they did last night, I think they might be able to steal a few.
Yeah, I think that this is the exact type of performance that you wanted from the Grizzlies going into their last scrimmage before they start the season here on Friday against Portland, because it shows that they've adjusted to the bubble life, that they are clicking on all cylinders. And regardless of whether Miami Heat were maybe not playing 100% going at it yesterday afternoon, it still was great to see the Grizzlies actually be able to make shots and put up the amount of points they did. And, of course, Ja just firing on all cylinders, 22 and 12.
Yeah, but the biggest thing, I think, even more than Ja, because Ja has been, he's
been doing it all year.
He's consistent. He is literally poetry on an NBA basketball court, in my opinion. But Dylan Brooks has been one of those guys where since he got this extension, everybody's been sort of nervous, real nervous, been very inefficient. We know he's a high-volume shooter. And when he scores 20-plus points, I mean, the Grizzlies' record is way up. So, with Dylan Brooks, if he can be as efficient as he was last night, or at least around that mark, 8 for 12 is really nice for him. If he can stay around that mark, this Grizzlies team is going to find a lot of success in this schedule, especially early against Blazers, Spurs, Pelicans, Jazz. I think they can find some success against those teams if Dylan Brooks can be firing.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it since the schedule's really been released, that if the Grizzlies can get off to a hot start 3-0, then they pretty much have it wrapped up. And the way that they performed yesterday is definitely pointing signs and arrows to that being an actual possibility. And for Dylan Brooks, I mean, obviously a great talent, I think deserved the contract extension, deserved the money. But it's – when he's hot, he's hot, and when he's on, he's on. But it's got to be a little bit more consistent. Maybe I don't need 20 plus points from him every game in and game out, but I need at least 10. And it seems like it's either 20 or it's 5. It's 26 or it's 8. At least try to find some type of common ground for me.
I mean, the Dylan Brooks performances you don't want are when he's scoring in the teens or the low 20s and shooting at an inefficient, ridiculous clip of like 25%. Yeah. You don't want that out of him because we know how much of a volume shooter he is. He needs to be a guy who fills it up for them. That's what the Grizzlies need to be able to win. That's what the Grizzlies need to be able to contend in this restart. And I think, these first couple games they beat the Blazers before the All-Star break. They can handle the Spurs. Pelicans, we shall see what they are like because I think Zion got cleared from quarantine as of last night, but I'm not sure if he's going to play. I think
he should be. If he's clear to go, he should be good to go.
I think that's his. What I heard as of yesterday is that he should be good to go, but it didn't sound like it from all the reporting I saw on it. I'm not sure that he will be in uniform and going for the restart, but we shall see. We shall see. But again, the back half of the schedule, you start to wonder because normally you look at the Jazz, Thunder, Raptors, Celtics, Bucks, and say, okay, these are going to be tough matchups. These are going to be really tough matchups for the Grizzlies. But in the grand scheme of things, you wonder at the end of the season, those last 4 or 5 games, if those teams are going to take their foot off the gas a tad bit, especially the Celtics and Bucks, because they are likely locked up in their positions in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, I mean, that's been, I think, up for debate a lot. A lot of people think that they're going to treat the last few games like they would in the regular season, but I'm still not 100% sure, just due to the fact that we've taken so much time off. And to get playoff ready, it takes more than 3 scrimmages and a few regular season or games that actually count and matter to get back into playoff type of performances. So, I really would not be shocked that, Boston and Milwaukee and Toronto, those final 3 games for the Grizzlies, are actually playing at full speed and having the full roster out there to get playoff ready.
I don't doubt that because I think you hit the nail on the head with that one. Yes, you probably need a decent amount of games to get back into playing shape and playing sort of team basketball, figuring it back out with each other. So I definitely see that, but you do wonder what the last 2 games on this schedule, the Celtics and Bucks, will look like from a standpoint of who's playing and who's not. But also around the MLB yesterday, the Marlins, after the Nationals refused to play them, so their next
took a vote
series was against the Nationals. The Orioles had been postponed; they didn't want to play, but the Nationals refused to play the Marlins as well. So they are now the Marlins postponed through at least Sunday, and that's going to be 5 missing games. And you do the math. I mean, 60 games in 66 days. You're definitely running low on time. I don't know how they're going to make those up, if they'll make them up.
Or if they really even need to make them up.
Yeah, and they're missing games against the Orioles and Nationals. And then, ironically, the next scheduled game for the Marlins is going to be against the Phillies, who they open the season up against next Tuesday on the 4th. So this also caused a ripple effect and changed the Yankees, who were supposed to play the Phillies, and the Orioles, who were supposed to play the Marlins. Now they're going to play each other in Baltimore. On Wednesday, they're going to start that Wednesday. So this is definitely, the MLB is feeling the effects of the Marlins positive test greatly.
Yeah, but I think that shutting it down for the week, while, obviously we're slated for 66 days, 60 games in 66 days, I don't think that's set in stone. I think that's where the MLB would like to end their season. But if it comes down to it that these games need to be played against the Marlins, I think that they'll end up playing them for respective teams. As I say, the Nationals or the Phillies really Nationals, Phillies, or Orioles really, really need a few more games to kind of make a playoff push to get into the wild card seedings or for a division title. Then they will be played. Or we go off of winning percentage, which I just think that opens up a whole lot more room for debate and room for argument instead of 100 playing the 60. Best record out of 60, you can't really argue with it. If you go off of winning percentages, then it's like, well, what if they had actually played? They probably would have dropped one or two. The percentage would have gone down. This team would have moved up. So I think MLB did the right decision by shutting them down kind of to stop the spread and to stop the influence that the Marlins could possibly give to other organizations and in other cities. So if it works and nobody from going forward, once the Marlins start to play contracted from anybody on opposing teams, I think this is kind of the blueprint that we're going to have going forward. If you have multiple guys, 5 to 10 or even more, then look, you're shut down for a week, you're getting tested every day, and you're going into quarantine, and we'll figure it out from there.
So with 15 positive COVID-19 tests, I sort of wonder, and the Nationals, of course, were the first team to literally refuse to play the Marlins. I wonder, though, come next Tuesday, their next slated game against the Phillies, if the Phillies are going to want to face off against them again. I wonder what these guys think about the risk of the Marlins in general right now.
Well, I think that it's the same risk that they thought about when they decided to play, when they decided not to opt out of the 2020 season, that they knew that there was going to be risks. They knew that they were possibly going to come in contact with another player that has contracted COVID-19. I think the Nationals kind of really set a precedent by taking a vote and saying, no, we're just not going to do it. We're not going to put ourselves at that high of a risk. But with the Phillies, I think if they continue to get negative, we still aren't 100% sure that none of them contracted
because of
the virus.
Period.
Yes, from the Marlins due to the incubation period, which can last up to 14 days. Normally, I think what they're reporting is normally within 2 to 3 days of coming in contact, you'll could possibly test positive or will start showing symptoms if you're not asymptomatic. So we should know for sure, I believe, by the end of the week. By Friday. So if everything stays clear, I think MLB did a good job by this.
The one thing that really threw me off, Drew, and I think you can also, I don't know how much you sort of fall into this category, is I figured the MLB would not have the amount of delays on testing that they have. We were waiting, 2 days for the Phillies tests to come back. And I think that, I think they need to try and get them a little more rapid, because then you waste a game if they're all negative, right? You're wasting time by waiting for these tests. And I get that you don't want to take resources away from the general population and everything of that nature. But I think as the MLB right now, if you're trying to get this season and you need to get these tests back as fast as possible, it doesn't seem like they're doing that. It seems like they're sort of on the same waiting period as you and I.
Well, they're definitely getting them back faster than I did. I got my results back, I believe, 4.5 days after I took the test. So, it's just the climate I think that we are in. I would love for the results to come back within a couple of hours, but that's just not where we are in the development of the test. As soon as that becomes relatively available to most people, then the MLB and all these other professional leagues will have that testing, and we'll be able to get it out a lot faster.
Well, it seems like the NBA and NFL have sort of gotten their tests back pretty expeditiously from the looks of it. I mean, they report for camp, I believe, obviously it was yesterday, but they were talking about the positive coronavirus tests yesterday as well. So it seems as if they are getting it done quicker than the MLB. But again, we will talk to Dan Clark here on the other side about that. He will be at Dan Clark Sports on Twitter. We're going to talk to him about some Marlins, some Nationals, see exactly what is about to happen with this season, how they're going to try and make up these games and alleviate some of the stress that we've had to deal with this week. But we'll be right back here on Sports 56, 96.1, 87.7.
R&R on Sports.
It's right here at 7:30.